Get ready for an unfair advantage over your competition. This is the Sales Edge podcast, where globally recognized sales expert and trainer Joe Pici helps you sharpen your skills for booking more appointments and closing more deals. And now, here's your host, Joe Pici.
Well, welcome back to The Sales Edge. This is Joe Pici, and we're here to give you an unfair advantage over your competition, help you to get in front of your target market, help you to build cohesive teams, help you to have better relationships with your clients, with your prospective clients, with your peers, with your coworkers, with people who work for you, people who work above you. What we're going to talk about today is the fourth aspect of the 9 negotiables. And I believe probably the least amount of effort goes into this, which is communications. We take communications for granted. I get in front of thousands and thousands of people every single month, year. I'm always in front of small groups, large groups, individuals, and do a lot of coaching, speaking, and training with them. And I ask a simple question. I ask them, when is the last time you read a book? When is the last time you listened to a podcast? When is the last time you watched a video? When is the last time you attended an intense event, a workshop, a training, a seminar that was solely for the purpose of helping you to become a better communicator? I think we don't spend enough time in that area. We call it soft skills. And so many companies and individuals don't see the value on training in soft skills. And most people think they're good communicators because they talk a lot. And what I've learned is about 75% of communication is the art and skill of listening. And so when you look at communication, okay, Lynn Taylor is a national workplace expert and author, and she defines competent communication and people skills as maximizing effective and productive human interaction to everyone's benefit. See, at the end of the day, we're always working to build a know, a like, and a trust relationship with people. And it takes time. I think we believe sometimes we're entitled to a relationship with another person. We don't earn it. And I feel strongly that you earn relationships and you become a master of communication. In developing strong people skills, the process involves recognizing and adapting to the behavior and communication styles of others in order to build rapport. Now, let me make one thing perfectly clear. That's kind of funny, isn't it? But really, we're not talking about mirroring. We're not talking about mind melting. We're not talking about using tricks and gadgets. Many, many years ago, Dawn and I were in Moscow speaking to, about 6,000 people that were Russian. Of course, they're in Moscow. And we had an interpreter who's supposed to be the absolute best in all of Russia, and he was excellent. Well, there were about 4 people in the entire room that spoke English. Dawn and I, our interpreter, and the person who hired us. Well, interpreters cannot translate sarcasm or humor. My wife is extremely funny. She's very funny. I'm from New Jersey, and some of you will get that after I say that a few times, that, when you're from New Jersey, I'll help you with that. You're sarcastic. And I try to lose that. I'm really working hard at losing my sarcasm. It's been working really well, as you can see. But Dawn is funny. She is absolutely hysterical. And she's magnificent on stage, and people love her. And as she was speaking and saying some funny things, I was observing the audience, and they were laughing. And I'm thinking, this is not supposed to happen. You see, you're not supposed to be able to convey humor through an interpreter. Well, when the event was over, and everybody's cleaning up, and we're backstage and saying goodbye and hugging and trying to understand each other, They were drinking vodka. We were drinking water. It all looked the same, and so we weren't offending anybody. But I went up to him and I said, Miguel, you're very good. And he said, I am the best interpreter in all of Russia. Kind of a humble guy. And I said, that's great. Can I ask you a question? Yes. How much did they get? Oh, what do you mean? How much of what you said did they get from based on what we said? And he looked around and he said, maybe 60%. Now, I'm here to tell you that if you're communicating outside of someone else's communication style, they're not getting it all. You know, so many times we evaluate our closing ratios, our connectivity to our product. The price was too high. They were stupid people or whatever. We blame everybody when in fact maybe they didn't understand us. What Dawn and I have realized in mastering communication skills is that every person processes differently. Now, each behavior style has its own processing style. If I can figure out your behavior style, I can locate your processing style, then I can speak to your processing style, not to manipulate, not to change your mind, but so you better understand me. This takes skill. This takes great practice. This takes training. I used the word rapport. Many years ago, I was in a training event, and I was actually not doing the training. I was listening to the speaker, and he threw the word out, rapport, just threw it out. And this was a very small training event, and he said to everyone to give the definition to what people believe the word rapport meant. And I thought, well, that's a pretty easy word. That's a word everybody uses, so everybody must believe the same thing. And what I learned was a very, very important lesson that day, that a word means different things to different people. Even though the word rapport, is so easily used out there, everybody has a different definition. And so me being who I am, I said, I need to find out what this word means. I went to a dictionary and found out that rapport is the deepest level of relationship between individuals in a business setting. Did you hear that? Rapport is the deepest level of relationship between individuals in a business setting. It is established when harmony and accord have been reached between all parties. At rapport, these individuals know, like, and trust each other. This does not mean that they agree on every issue. It does mean they have attained a mutual respect for each other's opinion. I hear people all the time. I mean all the time. And what they say is, oh yeah, John and I have rapport. And they just met. Or I have rapport with so-and-so. Here's what I know about rapport. It's not when you think it happens. It's based on the actions of that other person. Know, like, and trust is a very, very, very hard thing to attain, and it takes a long time. When I begin a relationship with a new client, I would like to say we have rapport, but we don't. They're evaluating the results I deliver. They're evaluating everything I do, how I communicate with people. I was reading an article yesterday on LinkedIn that the head of a major corporation takes people out to breakfast and asks the restaurant to please mess up the breakfast. And they evaluate that person based on how they deal with the mistake that person made on their breakfast. That's incredible. You mean they're evaluating this person and this is a technology company, on a soft skill? Yes, you're being evaluated every day on soft skills. You know, I was listening to another very famous speaker yesterday, and he owns about 6 major companies. And what he said was he didn't care how productive a person was. He didn't care what they brought to the table in the way of results. He didn't care if they brought in their biggest client. If they could not get along with their peers, with the other people in the company, if they were toxic, if they were not great communicators, they were gone. Communications is so vital, and yet because of technology, and what I have observed, and this is just an observation I've made over the years, is the more technology that we bring in, the more we utilize technology, which is necessary. I mean, the iPhone, the iPad, the texting, you name it. You know, people now talk into their watch. People now are no longer proactive. They're reactive. They set timers. Bells go off. It's kind of like the old science class that I used to skip from time to time. If you ring the bell, the rat went and ate. And so we've become a very reactionary society. And so communication is not always on the forefront. But here's the most amazing thing about communication. I mean, every company I go into, everybody I sit across the table from, whether it's a private coaching, whether it is a group training, whatever it is, communications can be shifted and changed and improved immediately. Everybody says this, Joe, one of your value propositions is that you can help people gain an unfair advantage over their competition. Isn't that what you want? I mean, if you're sitting here listening to this podcast, I promise you this. You're not sitting here listening to my podcast because you need life coaching. I just don't. That's not who I am. I'm a productivity and growth kind of guy. I'm a results guy. Okay, I'm the kind of person that helps people get to the next level, and that's why I'm not for everybody. I was talking to a coaching client early this morning. And they said, Joe, whatever happened to that referral I gave you? They never moved forward with you. I know it's not the money. I said, no. People don't work with me unless they want to get to the next level. So that's the question I get all the time. Joe, you talk about giving us an unfair advantage. I said, well, the best and the most important first way that you can become better, you can gain an unfair advantage, is to be a master communicator. And they look at me. And I said, it has nothing to do with how good your product works. It has everything to do with, can you adapt your communication style with the intent to get yourself out of the way and allow the other person and yourself to communicate true intent. And so, when is the last time you read a book? When is the last time you attended a seminar? When is the last time you did study on communication styles? Now, whether or not you want to use DISC, Myers-Briggs, animals, colors, assertive communication, there's so many methodologies out there. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I am saying you better subscribe to one. You better learn it. And you have to learn it past the level of awareness. There's hundreds of thousands of people taking assessments every day. But an assessment without true mastery of communications can be a waste of time and money. Which one do you subscribe to, and do you use it? Because to know and not to do is not to know. I meet people every day that have taken a class or gotten certified or even train it, but they put people in boxes. I think assessments are good, but I think assessments are not as valid all the time as most people make them out to be, because people based on stress, people based on role assignment, there's so many things that can affect your behavior. It can be the weather. And so the day you take an assessment, it could be very accurate to who you are that moment. But you go to work and you're a different person, because you're a different person maybe when you're working than you are with your children. And so many companies will hire people strictly on an assessment, and then the first thing they say is when they got here, they were a different person. Well, sure, when they took the assessment, there was no stress. They had a glass of iced tea. They were kind of chilled out. And so they were answering questions, and then they got to work. They were under a different set of circumstances. So in most assessments, you have an environmental, okay, and you have a primary, which is who you are at rest, so to speak, and then who you are in your environment. And some people make massive changes. Also, I will say this, because on our next podcast, I'm going to take this even deeper. But I will tell you something else. When we first learned communication styles, we absolutely learned that who you are is what you are, and you really don't change much. And I'm here to tell you, after mentoring, coaching, training, and speaking, and living with my wife for 47 years, that's not true, according to my experience. I've seen people make drastic changes based on things that have happened in their life. And so I'm challenging you not to put people in a box, not to say because you read an assessment, they're a such and such. And you put them in that box, and that's how you deal with them, and you never give them room to be who they are. And they may have changed their behavior style, but you were so locked in. You were so locked into who and what you thought they were that you never adapted. You never changed. Now, the next thing I will say to you is this. Of all the training, speaking, and coaching we do, the first thing people say to us is, well, how can I read the other person? How do I know what they are? And I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to spend the next podcast. First, you have to be able to read yourself. And we're going to talk about reading yourself. You have to be able to know what you are before you know what they are. And then you can apply, quote unquote, adapters. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you about is this. Many years ago, there was a tragedy in our country, 9/11. And they were interviewing Mayor Giuliani. And on his desk, there was a plaque that said, "I'm responsible." And he said this in the interview: "I'm not going to take the blame for this travesty, but I am going to take the responsibility to fix it." Folks, at some point in time, somebody has to take the responsibility for successful interaction. I have chosen in every communication, I have chosen that I will do the adapting. I will step back. I will make it easy for the other person. I'm not going to war. I'm going to communication. So I worked very, very hard to take total responsibility on whether or not this is going to be a successful interaction, which means there's nothing I can do to change the other person, and we have to get out of that mindset. There is nothing you can do to change the other person. What you have to do is take the responsibility, and you have to decide to work on you. I have to work on me. It's very painful. You know, when I realized that I was the problem in most of communication stuff, I realized I had a lot of work to do. It had nothing to do with the other person. It really didn't. It had everything to do with, was Joe willing to learn and grow and evolve and adapt for the better communication for the other person? So here's something for you, and this is free. If you go on our website, and you can download one of our e-courses, The 3 Keys for Building Rapport. Our website is www.piciandpici.com. Also, go on LinkedIn, find Joe Pici, P-I-C-I, and link up with me. You know, you're always welcome to give Joe a call at 407-947-2590 for what I call a free cup of Joe. This show is sponsored by Peachy and Peachy Inc., and we're going to continue to give you value. We're going to give you content. We will be having guests down the road. Initially, We're setting a foundation. So once again, this has been the Sales Edge. Okay, so if you have any questions, go to my email, joe@piciandpici.com. Put in a tagline on top, questions for Sales Edge. Send me a question and I will get to it and I will answer it. And if you don't want me to mention your name, put it in the email. If you do, I will. But thanks for your time. This was one of a two-part piece on communication styles. In our next show, we're going to dig a little deeper on the communication styles. Thanks. We'll see you on our next show.
Thanks for listening. New episodes will air each Tuesday and Thursday, so make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a 5-star review. The Sales Edge is sponsored by Peachy & Peachy Incorporated, a firm which provides training, consulting, and keynote presentations, empowering corporations and individuals to attract and retain quality clients for higher revenues and growth. Make more money in sales. Speak with Joe in person by calling 407-947-2590 or visit www.peachyandpeachy.com. Spelled PICIAND, PICI.com.